Chapter 1. The Mystery Emerges. The schoolyard of Riverton Bend Middle School buzzed with the usual chatter and laughter of students enjoying their recess. The bright sun bathed the playground in a warm glow, contrasting sharply with the chill of an unfolding mystery. Henry Hawk Smart leaned against the school's brick wall, his autumn chestnut hair catching glints of sunlight. His observant eyes scanned the playground, always alert for anything unusual. Beside him, Leo Baxter, with his wild, curly red hair, was animatedly discussing the latest video game releases. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by a hushed, excited whisper from a group nearby. "Did you hear about the old house on Maple Street? My brother said he saw lights there last night," a girl with braided pigtails said, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. Leo turned to Henry, his eyebrows raised in interest. "Isn't that the house everyone says is haunted?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism, yet unmistakably intrigued. He nodded thoughtfully, his detective instincts kicking in. "Yeah, it's been abandoned for years, but lights, that's new." He stroked his chin, a gesture he had picked up from his grandfather, pondering the possibility. Another boy, freckled and wide-eyed, joined in, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "They say you can hear weird noises at night, like someone or something is moving around in there." A shiver ran through the group even as the sun continued to shine brightly overhead. The old house on Maple Street had always been a source of spooky stories and dares among the kids in Riverton Bend. But this was different. This was tangible, a mystery begging to be unraveled. Henry exchanged a look with Leo, a silent communication they had perfected over their many adventures. The unspoken message was clear. They had a new case. Leo grinned, his usual enthusiasm bubbling to the surface. "Sounds like we've got some investigating to do, Hawk." Lips curved into a determined smile. After school, we'll start with a little reconnaissance. His mind was already racing with questions and theories. Who could be in the old house? What were they doing there? As the recess bell rang, signaling the end of their break, Henry and Leo headed back to class, their steps quickened by the thrill of a new mystery. The whispers and rumors of the school had ignited a spark of curiosity, setting the stage for their latest adventure in Riverton Bend. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets of Riverton Bend as Henry and Leo made their way home from school. The air was filled with the crisp scent of early fall, leaves crunching under their sneakers. As they walked, their path took them near the infamous old house on Maple Street. The structure stood like a forgotten relic, its paint peeling and shutters askew. Overgrown ivy clung to its sides, as if trying to conceal its secrets. The house had always exuded an aura of mystery, but today it seemed to beckon them closer. "Remember the stories about this place?" Leo asked, his eyes scanning the dilapidated facade. "They say it's been empty since before we were born." He nodded, his gaze drawn to the upper windows. "Yeah, supposedly haunted by the ghost of its last owner," he replied, a hint of skepticism in his voice. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he couldn't deny the eerie feeling that hung in the air. As they observed, a faint flicker caught Henry's eye. It was subtle, easy to miss, but unmistakably there, a brief flash of light from one of the upper windows. "Did you see that?" Henry whispered sharply, grabbing Leo's arm. Leo squinted towards the window. "The light, but I thought the power was cut off years ago," he murmured, his curiosity piqued. Henry's mind raced with possibilities. Was it a reflection? A trick of the light? Or something more? "We need to get a closer look," he said, his detective instincts fully awakened. Cautiously approached the rusted iron gate that groaned in protest as Henry pushed it open. The overgrown garden was like a labyrinth, hiding the house from prying eyes. As they neared the building, the sense of desolation grew stronger. It was a place forgotten by time, yet here they were, drawn by a flicker of light in an otherwise dark history. They positioned themselves beneath the window, hidden by the shadow of a large, gnarled tree. The window was dirty, the glass warped with age, making it difficult to see inside. But as they watched, the light appeared again, more pronounced this time. It was a soft glow, like that of a candle, dancing briefly before disappearing. Leo turned to Henry, his eyes alight with excitement and a touch of apprehension. "There's definitely something going on in there," he whispered. Henry nodded, his mind already forming plans and theories. "We need to investigate this," he said, the mystery unfolding like a puzzle in his mind. "But we'll need to be careful. If someone is in there, we don't know their intention." Henry's bedroom, transformed into a detective's command center, was a testament to his inquisitive nature. Walls adorned with maps of Riverton Bend, a corkboard peppered with notes and photos, and various gadgets strewn across his desk created an ambience of intrigue and adventure. The setting sun cast a golden hue through the window, illuminating the room in a warm, inviting light. Plopped down on the beanbag chair, his eyes scanning the room with admiration. "This place never gets old, Hawk," he said, a grin spreading across his face. Henry, seated at his desk, was already sifting through his collection of detective tools. A magnifying glass, a digital camera, a notebook, and several other gadgets. "We need to be prepared for anything," he stated, his tone serious yet tinged with excitement. Leo leaned in, his curiosity piqued. "So what's the plan? A classic stakeout?" Henry nodded, laying out a detailed map of the area surrounding the old house. "Exactly. We'll watch the house from a safe distance first. See if we can spot any patterns or unusual activity." "What about getting inside?" Leo asked, tracing a path on the map with his finger. "Be cautious. If we decide to go in, it'll have to be at a time when we're least likely to be noticed. Nighttime might be our best bet," Henry replied, his brow furrowed in thought. Leo rummaged through a drawer, pulling out 2 compact flashlights and a pair of walkie-talkies. "Got our light and communication covered," he said, checking the batteries. Henry picked up a small digital recorder, "and this will help us document anything we find. Evidence is key." He then glanced at a small, handheld thermal camera. "This could be useful too, especially if the house is not as abandoned as it seems." As they continued to prepare, their conversation was a blend of strategy and excitement. They discussed potential entry points, how to move quietly, and what to do in case of an emergency. "Remember, our goal is to observe and gather information. We're not there to disturb anything," Henry reminded Leo, who nodded in agreement. Buzzed with the energy of anticipation. These were more than just 2 boys planning an adventure. They were a team, each bringing their strengths to the table. Finally, with their backpacks filled with tools and their plan set, they looked at each other, a sense of resolve in their eyes. "Let's solve this mystery," Leo said, a determined glint in his eye. Henry smiled, his mind racing with possibilities. "The enigma of the abandoned house won't stand a chance against us," he declared, his confidence bolstering their spirits. Chapter 2. Venturing Inside. Had draped Riverton Bend in a blanket of darkness, pierced only by the occasional streetlight, casting long, eerie shadows. The old house on Maple Street loomed ahead, its silhouette a stark contrast against the starlit sky. Henry and Leo, dressed in dark clothes to blend into the night, moved with cautious steps. Their backpacks, laden with gadgets and tools, were silent reminders of the gravity of their mission. "This is it," Henry whispered, his voice barely audible. He pulled out a small, handheld thermal camera and scanned the area. "No heat signatures. Looks like we're clear for now." Leo nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Remember the plan. In and out, no unnecessary risks." They approached the rusted gate, which Henry carefully opened to avoid any creaking sounds. Once inside the overgrown garden, they felt a sense of isolation from the outside world, as if stepping into a different realm. Flashlight sparingly, they navigated through the tangled underbrush. The old house stood silent, its windows like dark, unblinking eyes watching their every move. As they reached the back of the house, Henry pointed to a slightly ajar window. "That's our way in," he murmured. He took out a pair of gloves and slipped them on, mindful not to leave any traces. Leo followed suit, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. He glanced back at the quiet street, a world away from the adventure they were embarking upon. With Henry leading, they carefully pried the window open enough to slip inside. The room they entered was shrouded in darkness, filled with the musty smell of disuse and decay. They paused, letting their eyes adjust, listening for any signs of movement. Henry's voice broke the silence. "We need to be quick. Let's start with the ground floor and work our way up." Moved through the rooms, their flashlights casting ghostly beams across peeling wallpaper and dusty furniture. The house was a time capsule, each room telling a story of a life long gone. Leo's flashlight fell upon a portrait, the face of a man gazing back at them with a stern expression. "Looks like the former owner," he whispered, a hint of unease in his voice. Henry studied the portrait, committing every detail to memory. "Let's keep moving. We need to find any clues about who might be using this place now." Their exploration led them through a labyrinth of rooms and corridors, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the house's mysteries. The sense of being in uncharted territory was palpable, the thrill of the unknown driving them forward. As they ascended the creaking staircase to the upper floor, the reality of their situation settled in. They were two young detectives, alone in an abandoned house, uncovering secrets hidden by time. The night outside was still and quiet, but inside the shadows seemed to whisper of mysteries waiting to be discovered. The upper floor of the house was a maze of corridors and rooms, each one veiled in layers of dust and shadows. The beams of Henry and Leo's flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing forgotten fragments of the past. It appeared to be a study. Henry's light fell upon a large, heavy desk, its surface littered with papers and faded photographs. He carefully picked up a photograph, the edges brittle with age. It showed a family standing in front of the house, smiles frozen in time. The stern man from the portrait was there, his arm around a woman with gentle eyes surrounded by children. "Looks like this was their home once," Henry murmured, his voice tinged with a mix of reverence and curiosity. "But why was it abandoned?" Leo, who was rifling through a stack of old newspapers, looked up. "Check this out," he said, holding up a paper, its headlines still legible despite the yellowing. "It's dated over 50 years ago." They scanned the articles, finding snippets of local news, advertisements, and announcements, all painting a picture of Riverton Bend's past. One article, however, stood out, a report on a tragic accident involving a local businessman. The accompanying photo showed the same stern man from the portrait in the photograph. "This could be our guy," Leo said, pointing to the photo. "Maybe the accident had something to do with why the house was abandoned." Deep in thought. "There's a story here, hidden in these walls. We need to piece it together." Their exploration led them to more rooms, each revealing more pieces of the puzzle. They found a child's room, toys and books still on the shelves, a layer of dust covering everything like a shroud. In another room, they discovered a collection of letters, tied with a faded ribbon, the handwriting elegant but tinged with sadness. As they delved deeper into the house's history, they felt as though they were walking through the memories of those who once called it home. The laughter and tears of the past seemed to echo in the silent rooms. "This place isn't just an old house," Henry said, a sense of reverence in his voice. "It's a capsule of someone's life, their joys and sorrows." Leo looked around, the beam of his flashlight dancing across the room. "And someone's been here recently, trying to unearth these memories just like us." He realized then that the mystery of the house was more profound than they had imagined. It was a tapestry woven with the threads of history, each strand a story waiting to be told. And in the heart of this mystery lay the key to understanding not just the house, but perhaps a forgotten chapter of Riverton Bend itself. The air grew heavier as Henry and Leo ventured deeper into the house. Each room they explored was like peeling back a layer of history, revealing secrets long buried in time. The house, with its creaking floors and whispering walls, seemed to be watching them, its secrets poised on the edge of revelation. In a dimly lit hallway, lined with faded paintings and cracked wood paneling, Leo paused, his flashlight beam landing on a peculiar section of the wall. "Henry! Look at this!" he called out, examining a strange outline barely visible in the wall's design. Henry joined him, his curiosity piqued. He ran his fingers along the outline, feeling the subtle differences in texture. "It's some sort of concealed door," he murmured, his detective instincts ignited. They examined the wall more closely, searching for a way to open the hidden passage. Henry's hand brushed against a small, almost imperceptible lever disguised as part of a decorative frame. With a gentle nudge, he pressed it. A low grinding sound echoed through the hall as the concealed door slowly swung open, revealing a narrow passage shrouded in darkness. The boys exchanged a look of astonishment and excitement. "This house keeps getting more interesting," Leo whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. Henry nodded, a thrill of discovery coursing through him. "Let's see where this leads. Be on your guard." They stepped into the passage, their flashlights piercing the darkness. The air was cool and still, as if untouched for decades. The passage wound its way behind the walls, a secret artery hidden within the heart of the house. After a few turns, they emerged into a small, hidden room. The room was a time capsule in itself, filled with artifacts that seemed deeply personal, old journals, maps, and strange, intricate devices that hinted at a life of exploration and adventure. "Whoever lived here had a whole secret life," Leo said in awe, picking up a leather-bound journal. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and sketches, each entry a glimpse into the thoughts and dreams of its author. Henry examined an old map, its edges frayed and corners curled. The map detailed areas around Riverton Bend, with certain spots marked with cryptic symbols. This could be a map of hidden places around town, he speculated, his mind racing with possibility. As they delved into the room's contents, each item added a new layer to the house's mystery. The room was a sanctuary, a hidden retreat that held the key to understanding the enigmatic history of the house and its occupants. "This isn't just about an abandoned house anymore," Henry said, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and determination. "There's a deeper story here, and we're going to uncover it." The discovery of the secret room was not just a turning point in their adventure. It was a doorway into a past that intertwined with the very fabric of Riverton Bend. What began as a simple investigation was now a journey into the heart of a mystery that bridged time and memory, beckoning them further into its depths. 3. The reclusive story. The hidden room, with its trove of secrets, had captivated Henry and Leo, but a sudden sound snapped them back to reality. A creaking noise echoed from the passage they had come through, sending a jolt of adrenaline through them. "Someone's here," Leo whispered, his voice tense. They quickly extinguished their flashlights, plunging the room into darkness. The sound of slow, measured footsteps grew louder, approaching the secret room. Henry and Leo exchanged a silent, apprehensive glance, unsure of who or what to expect. As the figure entered the room, the dim light from the passage revealed an elderly man, his hair a wild tangle of white, his clothes worn and threadbare. He stopped abruptly upon seeing the boys, his eyes widening in surprise and fear. "You," the man demanded, his voice rough but tinged with fear. "We're sorry. We didn't mean to," Henry said quickly, trying to ease the tension. "We're just exploring." The man's initial fright shifted to curiosity. "Exploring, huh?" he said, his voice softening. "You're the first visitors I've had in many years." Leo, still on edge, asked cautiously, "Are you living here?" The man nodded slowly, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "This was my family's home. I've been here since everyone else left." Sensing the man's pain, stepped forward. "We found your hidden room and all the things you kept there. You must have had many adventures." The man's eyes lit up at the mention of the hidden room. "Ah, yes, my sanctuary. Those were different times. I was at different times. I was a different person then," he said, a nostalgic smile touching his lips. The atmosphere in the room shifted as the man invited them to sit and talk. Surrounded by the relics of his past, he began to share his story. His name was Walter, and he had been a young man full of dreams and ambitions when a series of tragic events led him to retreat from the world. As he spoke, his voice wove a tale of loss, love, and longing. The house, once filled with laughter and life, had become a refuge from a world that he no longer felt a part of. His family's departure, the changing times, and his own personal sorrows had turned him into a recluse. Henry and Leo listened, their initial fear replaced by a deep sense of empathy. The mysterious recluse was no longer a figure of urban legends. He was a man with a story, a history, interwoven with the very fabric of Riverton Bend. Realized that their adventure had uncovered not just the secrets of an old house, but the human story behind it. In the dim light of the room, as Walter shared his memories, they understood that every mystery has a human heart, sometimes broken, sometimes lost, but always worthy of being heard. The room, once a sanctuary of secrets, now became a chamber of revelations as Walter, the recluse, began to unfurl the tapestry of his life. The dim light seemed to soften the lines on his face as he spoke, his voice a melody of nostalgia and sorrow. "I was much like you two at your age, full of curiosity and a hunger for adventure," Walter began, his eyes distant, as if visualizing his youth. "This house, it was alive then, brimming with love and laughter. My parents, my siblings, we were a close-knit family." Henry and Leo listened intently, their earlier apprehension replaced by a profound sense of connection. The artifacts they had found in the hidden room were no longer just objects, they were fragments of Walter's life story. "The accident changed everything," Walter continued, his voice faltering slightly. He described a fateful day, decades ago, when a tragic event claimed the lives of his parents. "I was left to care for my siblings, but grief is a heavy burden to bear, especially for a young man." I could see the pain in Walter's eyes, a pain that had never truly faded. "I tried to keep the family together, but one by one my siblings left, each seeking their own path. I was left alone in this big, empty house, surrounded by memories." Walter's tale wove through the years, recounting his struggle to maintain the house, his retreat into solitude, and how the world outside moved on without him. "I became a ghost in my own home, unseen, unheard, forgotten." As they absorbed his story, Henry and Leo understood that the mystery of the house was deeply entwined with Walter's tragedy. The hidden room, the artifacts, the maps, they were all pieces of life paused by loss and solitude. Walter's eyes shone with unshed tears as he spoke of his love for Riverton Bend, his hopes for his family's legacy, and his eventual surrender to seclusion. "In time, I became more comfortable with the shadows and the light, but the memories, they kept me company." The boys realized that the mystery they sought to unravel was not about haunting or hidden treasures, but about a man's heartache and his connection to a place that once symbolized home and happiness. Conversation drew to a close. The room felt charged with emotion. Henry and Leo, touched by the depth of Walter's story, felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just amateur detectives on an adventure. They had become keepers of a forgotten history, entrusted with a story that deserved to be told. At that moment, the walls of the old house seemed to embrace them all, a silent witness to the past, present, and perhaps a future where Walter's story could find a new beginning. The atmosphere in the room had transformed from one of mystery to a profound understanding. Walter, the recluse, had finished his tale, his voice fading into the silence that enveloped the room. Henry and Leo, deeply moved by his story, shared a look of determination. Henry spoke first, his voice steady and sincere. "Walter, your story, it's more than we could have ever imagined. We promise to keep your secret. This is your home, your sanctuary." Walter nodded, a fragile smile on his lips. "Thank you, boys. I feared you might see me as just another strange old man, a relic of the past." His usual buoyant spirit, tempered with empathy, added, "We see you as someone who's been through a lot, Walter. You're not just a part of this house's history. You are its heart." A silence fell upon the room, a respectful acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between the generations. Then Henry, with a spark of his inherent problem-solving nature, spoke up. "But we want to do more than just keep your secret. We want to help you, if you let us." Walter's eyes widened in surprise. "Help me? How?" "We could start by helping fix up the place a bit," Leo suggested enthusiastically. "Maybe bring some life back into this old house." "And there's more," Henry continued. "Your story and this house are important parts of Riverton Bend's history. Maybe there's a way to share that, to reconnect you with the community," he said, his mind already racing with ideas. His initial hesitation gave way to a cautious hope. For so long he had lived in the shadows of his memories, isolated and forgotten. The prospect of rekindling a connection with the world he had left behind was both daunting and heartening. I don't know what to say," Walter murmured, the walls of solitude he had built around himself beginning to crack. "I never thought I'd have such an opportunity." Henry smiled, his detective's mind alight with plans and possibilities. "Just say you'll give it a chance. That's all we ask." Leo nodded in agreement. "You've got a story that deserves to be heard, Walter, and we're going to help you tell it." As they left the old house that night, the moon casting long shadows across the overgrown garden, Henry and Leo felt a sense of purpose greater than any mystery they had ever solved. They had made a promise, not just to keep a secret, but to help restore a life long hidden in the shadows. Watching from the window, felt a stirring of something long dormant in his heart, hope. For the first time in many years, the night didn't seem quite so dark, nor the future so bleak. In the faces of two young detectives, he had found an unexpected chance for a new beginning. Chapter 4. Uncovering the Truth. Back in the safety and familiarity of Henry's command center, the boys delved into their new mission with fervor. The room was abuzz with the energy of discovery, the walls echoing with the spirit of inquiry. Henry's computer glowed in the dim light, pages of historical archives and local records splayed across the screen. "I've found something," Henry exclaimed, his eyes scanning an old newspaper article on the screen. "It's about Walter's family. They were quite prominent in Riverton Bend back in the day." Leo, hunched over a pile of books and old maps they had borrowed from the local library, looked up. "That fits with the stories he told us. What else does it say?" "Books about their contributions to the town, charity events and community projects. Walter's father was a respected businessman," Henry read aloud, his voice tinged with respect. "It's sad how the legacy just faded away." Leo sifted through another book, his fingers tracing the lines of text. "Hey, check this out," he said, pointing to a passage. "There's a mention of the accident that changed everything for Walter's family. It says here that it was a big shock to the community." The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, each discovery shedding more light on Walter's life and the events that led him to seclusion. The boys pieced together timelines, cross-referencing dates and events, constructing a more complete picture of the recluse's past. Henry's eyes then fell on a photograph in one of the books, a black-and-white image of the old house in its heyday, vibrant and full of life. "Look at this, Leo. It's hard to believe it's the same place we were." Leo leaned in, his gaze softening. "It's more than just a house, isn't it? It's a symbol of what Walter lost and what he's been holding on to all these years." Night deepened, their research uncovered more than just facts and dates. It unearthed the emotional landscape of a life shaped by tragedy and time. They read about the community's reaction to the family's misfortune, the gradual decline of the house, and the eventual fading of Walter's story from public memory. "This is more than just detective work," Henry said, his voice reflective. "We're uncovering a lost chapter in Riverton Bend's history." Leo nodded, a sense of gravity in his expression. "And we're going to help write its next chapter. Walter deserves that." Their investigation continued into the early hours of the morning, the room a cocoon of concentration and resolve. Henry and Leo, united in their quest, were not only uncovering the truth about Walter's past, but also learning about the enduring impact of history on the present. As dawn's first light crept into the room, the boys realized they had not only discovered the hidden depths of a forgotten life, but also the profound responsibility of carrying someone's legacy into the light. Walter's story, once shrouded in the mists of time, was now ready to be shared with the world, and Henry and Leo were determined to be its faithful chroniclers. Light spilled into Henry's command center, casting a new day's light over the two young detectives. Amidst a sea of historical documents and personal notes, they began to craft a plan to help Walter, the recluse, reconnect with the world he had left behind. Henry, his fingers drumming thoughtfully on the desk, broke the silence. "We need a multi-step approach. First, let's see if Walter has any relatives around. Maybe they don't know he's still here." Leo, his eyes bright with enthusiasm, nodded in agreement. "And we can reach out to local historians and the Riverton Bend Historical Society. They'd love to know about the house and Walter's family history." They divided their tasks, Henry focusing on tracing any living relatives using online resources and local records, while Leo drafted an email to the Historical Society, detailing their findings and suggesting a feature on Walter's family and the house. As they worked, their plan began to take shape. "What if we organize a small community event?" Henry proposed. "Something to honor the history of the house and introduce Walter to the community again." Oh, loved the idea. "We could have a history exhibit, maybe even a guided tour of the house, if Walter's okay with it. It would give him a chance to be part of the community again, in his own way." They considered Walter's likely reservations and agreed on the importance of taking things slow, ensuring he was comfortable every step of the way. It has to be on his terms, Henry emphasized. We can't rush this. Leo's mind raced with ideas for the event. We could even have a small section showcasing the artifacts from the hidden room. It's like a mini museum of his life. The plan was taking form, a blend of respect for Walter's privacy and a celebration of his and the house's place in Riverton Bend's history. It was more than just a project. It was a bridge between past and present, loneliness and community. As they finalized their plan, the boys felt a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. They were not just helping an old recluse. They were bringing a forgotten story to light, weaving it back into the fabric of the town. Talk to Walter about this. Get his approval and input, Henry said, a sense of responsibility in his voice. Absolutely, agreed Leo. This is his story. We're just helping him tell it. Their plan, a testament to their ingenuity and kindness, was ready. It was a plan not just to uncover history, but to restore a sense of belonging and community, to mend the threads of a life unraveled by time and circumstance. With Walter's hesitant yet hopeful consent, Henry and Leo set the wheels of their plan in motion. The air was tinged with a sense of anticipation as they prepared to unveil the true story of the old house and its lone inhabitant to the people of Riverton Bend. The community event, held in the local town hall, was a culmination of the boys' efforts and Walter's newfound courage. The hall was filled with curious townspeople, local historians, and even a few of Walter's long-lost relatives who had been contacted by Henry. He took the lead, standing before the gathering with a confidence beyond his years. Today, we're not just revisiting a piece of Riverton Bend's history, he began, his voice clear and steady. We're also reintroducing a member of our community who has been forgotten by time. Leo then stepped forward, unveiling a series of displays they had prepared, photographs of the house in its prime, excerpts from Walter's family history, and artifacts from the secret room. The audience murmured in amazement, their perception of the old house shifting from a place of ghostly tales to a monument of local heritage. Walter, standing off to the side, watched with a mixture of apprehension and awe. For so long he had been a shadow in his own story, but now he was the centerpiece of a narrative being reclaimed. As the presentation concluded, the townspeople approached Walter, some with words of sympathy, others with curiosity. They asked questions about his life, the house, and his family's legacy. Walter, initially overwhelmed, found himself responding with a growing sense of ease. The barriers of isolation that had surrounded him for so long were slowly crumbling down. One elderly lady, who had known Walter's parents, shared her memories of the family, bringing a tearful smile to Walter's face. A group of local historians expressed their interest in helping preserve the house as a historical landmark. Leo watched, their hearts swelling with pride. They had not only uncovered a forgotten story, but had also sparked a renewed sense of community and connection. The old house, once a symbol of mystery and fear, was now seen as a precious link to the town's past. As the event drew to a close, Walter approached the boys, his eyes glistening with unspoken emotions. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice thick with gratitude. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever, a place in the world." The community's response was more than just a change in perception. It was an embrace of one of their own. The old house on Maple Street, with its hidden stories and whispered secrets, had been brought back to life, not just as a relic of the past, but as a living part of Riverton Bend's present and future. Chapter 5. Resolution and Reflection. The days following the community event saw a transformation that rippled through the heart of Riverton Bend. The old house on Maple Street, once shrouded in mystery and whispers, began to symbolize a renewed spirit of community and heritage. The recluse was no longer a shadowy figure of urban legends. He had become a living part of the town's narrative, his story a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The boys often visited him, each time finding him more engaged, slowly shedding the cloak of solitude he had worn for so long. "You know, I've been thinking," Walter said one sunny afternoon as he and the boys sat in his garden, now cleared of overgrowth. "Maybe it's time to bring this old house back to life, really make it part of the community." Henry smiled, his eyes reflecting the bright sky. "We thought you might say that. The Historical Society has offered to help with renovations. They see this place as a historical treasure. And, Leo chimed in excitedly, there's talk about making it a part-time museum and community centre. Your family's story could be an exhibit, a learning experience for everyone. Walter looked around his garden, his gaze lingering on the house he had known his entire life. I never imagined any of this would be possible. You boys have given me a gift I can never repay. Just us, Henry said modestly. It's the whole town. You're part of our history, Walter, and our future. The transformation of Walter and the house had a ripple effect on the community. People who had once avoided the old house now stopped by to offer help or share stories. The local schools planned field trips to learn about the town's history, with Walter as an honorary guide. As the house slowly regained its former glory, so too did Walter find a new place in the world. His days were filled with purpose and connection, a far cry from the isolated existence he had known for so long. Henry and Leo often reflected on their journey, from curious detectives unraveling a mystery to catalysts of change in someone's life and their community. Their adventure had not only uncovered secrets, but had also woven new threads into the tapestry of Riverton Bend's history. In the heart of the town, the old house stood proudly, its walls echoing with the laughter and chatter of visitors. It was no longer a place of shadows and secrets, but a beacon of memory and learning, a symbol of the enduring power of empathy and community, a symbol of the enduring power of empathy and community. The sun began to set. Henry and Leo found themselves sitting on the banks of the Willow River, the water reflecting the vibrant colours of the evening sky. It was a quiet moment, a pause in their otherwise adventurous lives, allowing them to reflect on the journey they had just undertaken. Henry, gazing at the flowing water, broke the silence. You know, when we started this, I thought it was just about solving a mystery, uncovering the secrets of that old house. Leo nodded, skimming a stone across the river's surface. But it turned out to be so much more. We didn't just uncover the past, we helped change someone's present. Henry looked thoughtful. It's made me realize how every story, every person, has so many layers. Like Walter and his house, there's often so much more beneath the surface than we realize. Leo's stone made ripples in the water, spreading outwards. Yeah, and it's about empathy, isn't it? Trying to understand what others have been through, their struggles and pain. It changes how you see them, and maybe how you see the world. In contemplative silence for a moment, the lessons of their adventure sinking in, Henry finally spoke up, his voice soft but firm. We've learned that history isn't just about dates and events. It's about people, their lives and their stories. What we did for Walter, it's like we brought a piece of history back to life. And in doing so, we became a part of that history too, Leo added, his eyes reflecting the last rays of the setting sun. We've always been about solving mysteries, but this was about solving a person's loneliness, reconnecting them with the world. Henry smiled, a sense of maturity in his expression. This adventure has taught us that being a detective isn't just about finding answers. It's about understanding the questions, the people behind them. As the evening sky transitioned from gold to pink and then to the deep blue of twilight, Henry and Leo sat quietly, their minds filled with the memories of their journey. They had started as young detectives, driven by curiosity and the thrill of the unknown. But they had emerged wiser, their hearts and minds expanded by the profound lessons of empathy, history, and the intricate complexity of human stories. At that moment, by the tranquil Willow River, they understood that their adventure had been more than just a chapter in their lives. It had been a transformative journey, one that had not only changed the life of a solitary recluse, but had also irrevocably altered their understanding of the world and their place in it. Stars had begun to twinkle in the night sky over Riverton Bend, casting a serene glow on the town. Henry and Leo, still seated by the river, were about to head home when Leo's phone buzzed with a new message. "Hey, it's from Mrs. Jenkins, my neighbour," Leo said, his eyebrows furrowing as he read the text. "She says there's been some strange happenings at the old mill on the outskirts of town. Lights flickering, weird noises at night, and no one's been using that place for years." Henry's interest was instantly piqued. The detective in him awakened once again. "An abandoned mill, huh? Sounds like our kind of mystery." Leo grinned, the thrill of a new adventure already bubbling within him. Mrs. Jenkins says the townsfolk are starting to talk, spinning tales about it being haunted. Henry stood up, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. A haunted mill, mysterious lights, and rumours among the townspeople. This sounds like the perfect next case for us. Walked back towards town. Their conversation was alive with speculation and excitement. The old mill, a relic of Riverton Bend's industrial past, had always been shrouded in a bit of mystery, but recent events seemed to have rekindled the town's interest in it. "We'll need to do some preliminary research. Check out the history of the mill," Henry said, already formulating a plan. "And we should probably take a trip out there, see it for ourselves." Leo's enthusiasm was infectious. "Yeah, and maybe talk to some of the locals, see if they've noticed anything unusual." The potential of a new mystery invigorated them, their minds racing with possibilities. As they reached the edge of town, the silhouette of the old mill could be seen in the distance, its structure a dark outline against the night sky. "This could be our next big adventure, Leo," Henry said, a sense of anticipation in his voice. Leo looked at the mill, then back at Henry. "I've got a feeling this is just the beginning, Hawk. Riverton Bend is full of secrets, and we're just getting started uncovering them."